Hello, School Transportation Nation. Welcome back to the podcast. You've got me and always excellent Mr. Ryan Gray, editorial extraordinaire. Ryan, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. And Nation, it's always great to be with you.
All right, we got some great headlines, some interesting interviews coming up in just a second. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, by the School Bus Safety Company, the leader in school bus driver training, and Ride, real innovation delivered with excellence. All right, our own Taylor Ekbatani is going to be talking with Jeremy Stowe, Director of Transportation at Buncombe County Schools. He is a 2025 STN Garage Star. He has a very colorful personality, a lot of fun to talk to, great stories. It is an excellent interview. It is long, but you will enjoy every second of it, guys. So I invite you to tune into that just a little bit later in the episode. Before we get to that, we got a quick message. We're back from STN Expo West, and what a blast. The TransFinder team had meeting everybody. They held several classes, had an amazing response to their ride and drive, showcasing their award-winning driver app, Wayfinder. One of the highlights was the top transportation teams panel discussion. The leaders of the 6 winning teams demonstrated just why their teams won. These were thoughtful leaders who listened to their teams, made changes to show how they cared, and yes, even had to make difficult decisions. As TransFinder's CEO Antonio Civitella said, it is so rewarding to honor these men and women who truly do heroic work every day. You can see how much this recognition means to these teams, and that's what makes it all worth the effort. TransFinder started the Top Transportation Teams program in 2023, and it continues to get bigger and better every year. Learn more by visiting toptransportationteams.com to learn more about how your company can join the program. Also visit transfinder.com. All right, we're back. We're very excited for our interview with Jeremy in just a minute with Taylor. I know, Ryan, Jeremy was at STN Expo East in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's local, right?
Yeah, Asheville area. So Buncombe County is out there in western in North Carolina. He was on hand to talk about the hurricane last year. So they obviously hard hit area, one of the hardest hit, really where the center of after that hurricane made landfall and moved inland. So he had a lot of stories to talk about. And we had actually ran an article earlier this year. So it'd be great to hear more from Jeremy.
Yeah, excellent. All right, we got great stuff. October issue is coming out. If you haven't gone to the stnonline.com website, go see what we have in store with the October issue. We've got a great TSD conference preview in there, 8 pages. You can go to tsdconference.com as well and download that conference preview. It overviews the entire show, all the details, keynotes, educational workshops, networking events, everything you need to know. That's November 6th through the 11th. We're about, about 40 days away, Ryan, give or take. Depends on when you listen to this episode. But we're getting closer and closer to going out to Frisco, Texas. It's a suburb of Dallas. So it's going to be exciting. The schedule looks great. The attendance is booming right now. We got great numbers right now over last year at this same time. So we're really looking forward to an outstanding event as the school transportation industry converges, as well as we'll be out at the NAPT conference too, out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So looking forward to seeing all our transportation friends.
Absolutely. And as this podcast is coming out, you have a couple days, Nation, to take advantage of the early bird deadline. So for TSD conference. So get out there, join all your friends. Like Tony said, registration is booming right now. Be a part of the action. Be a part of the party that we're going to be having out there. So head over to tsdconference.com, secure your spot, get a little extra savings to boot.
Yeah, $100 off. That's always good. That's why you should care about that October 3rd deadline. $100.
Absolutely.
For every person you bring. You bring 5 people, that's $500, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and we have lots of that this year too. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody out there. But in the meantime, Tony, tons of headlines. We've been talking, obviously, back to school time. There's still a ton of headlines out there in the nation's press talking about back to school. But it just seems, Tony, there's so much federal news right now. And we know in terms of federal support for school buses over the last couple of years, we've really seen that ramp up for school bus Wi-Fi.
Yep.
With the new Trump administration in place, a new FCC, they're looking to roll that back. There's already been some congressional moves earlier this year to remove hotspot devices that students can take home to access internet. Was not touching school bus Wi-Fi, but like the internet pucks, or if you will, that a lot of school districts provide their students, that no longer is funded by the federal government. The FCC, in early September, the new FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, who was on the FCC board when former chairman Jessica Rosenworcel passed this Learning Without Limits initiative, which basically, gave new life to the Emergency Connectivity Fund that Congress passed during COVID that allowed school bus Wi-Fi. Really, Rosenworcel looked to memorialize that with the Learning Without Limits initiative that made, for once and for all, we thought, school bus Wi-Fi equipment and service reimbursable through the E-rate program. Well, the new Commissioner Carr earlier in September said no, that was an overreach, that there's some security concerns. We're going to roll that back. When we were going to press with this podcast, FCC announced indeed they would be taking this issue up at its next board meeting, which was scheduled for September 30th. So, Nation, when you're hearing this podcast, will be furiously at work on an article either talking about school bus Wi-Fi being removed or it's staying the same. And the fact that there's 3 commissioners right now, 2 of them are Republican. Basically, FCC is going to roll back school bus Wi-Fi. So I was talking with a lot of folks this past couple of weeks about this issue. Again, all in preparation for an article once we know for sure what FCC is doing. And one person told me that essentially it's better for FCC to be doing this than Congress. So right now, there's a CRA, Congressional Review Act, in the House, really is championed by Senator Ted Cruz. We know he has been the one really spearheading the drive to remove FCC or E-rate funding of these Wi-Fi hotspots, school bus Wi-Fi. This is currently contained in that CRA, but I understand that Senator Cruz does not have enough votes in the House at this point. So FCC is moving forward with their side of everything. And again, this person in this source told me that it's better for FCC to do it because, Tony, the FCC could swing if in a couple of years, in 4 years, 3 years, whatever, if a Democrat takes office, guess what? The FCC is going to get a brand new makeup. It's going to become Democrat controlled once again. And we know there's 5 commissioners. As I said earlier, only 3 right now. So there's 2 more that need to be filled. And of course, President Trump's going to want to fill those with Republicans. But this source told me in the future, the FCC could always revisit this and roll that back. Whereas if Congress passes a CRA or passes a law, that would be much harder to repeal. So with bated breath, again, once this podcast comes out, we'll know a lot more, Tony, but certainly not good for at least the short-term purchasing planning of school districts that have either wanted to jump into Wi-Fi using this E-rate reimbursement or have been using it and we're relying on those funds.
Yeah, it's a political tug of war, Ryan. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. So unfortunately, this will be potentially a casualty of that, but we'll continue on the way as it goes. So, but I think there's a lot of other headlines that we're seeing. Obviously, emissions, CARB, EPA, there's a lot of action on the federal level there too. So what's the latest on that?
Well, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, of course, earlier this year sued the Trump administration over the revocation of those 3 waivers that one of them basically killed the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. The other 2 was the Advanced Clean Cars 2, which was looking at basically ZEV sales for light duty, pickups, trucks, cars, etc., vans. We also, for the school bus industry, we have the omnibus low NOx regulation. Basically, same thing for medium, heavy duty trucks and buses, school buses included, that they were setting these targets for states to purchase only ZEVs. So obviously California, there's about 14 other states that followed these CARB regulations, or 12. And amid all of this uncertainty, CARB said last week, they basically issued an emergency proposal to what they say have some kind of emission regulation in place for states, namely California, to follow, because what they say is a result of these waivers is that there is no prevailing regulation right now, because the omnibus low NOx rule basically supersedes the previous 2010 EPA regulation. So CARB is interpreting this as saying, hey, there is really no regulation, and for vehicles to be sold and certified into California or other states that follow that, or we're hoping to follow this regulation, it's just going to be, chaos. So they issued basically this proposal that, as we are recording this, is essentially they gave the public 5 business days to comment from when they released this last Monday. And essentially they're saying, hey, manufacturers, you have 2 choices. You can adhere to the same regulations of the omnibus low NOx, which is basically that 0.05 GBHP hour, that grams per brake horsepower per hour of NOx, or you can go back to the 2010. And again, for the most part, we've talked about this, Tony, most of the manufacturers have already, in fact, they all have really developed technology to meet that, as well as the EPA Phase 3 GHG rule, which we know EPA has put a pause on. They've put out a proposal of rulemaking to actually change that up. We're thinking it's going to be relaxing that so that diesel will continue to be available going forward. But CARB basically said you can do those 2 things. They warned, though, that if manufacturers go back and to the 2010, that if they win their court case with the Trump administration, then they will be out of compliance. So again, more tug of war. I reached out to several OEMs last week. Really no detailed comment, because this is all pending. The proposal was pending. The court litigation is pending. We know, of course, that Daimler Truck North America, which we can talk about in a second, made some more big news last week. They are leading about 5 OEMs that are suing CARB right now because of this uncertainty, and essentially saying this rule it's not feasible. So Daimler is certainly looking at this. International, the IC bus parent, they signed on to that lawsuit as well. Talked with Cummins. Everyone's basically kind of pushing forward. So it will be interesting to see. Again, all these things right now, Tony, are in court. It seems like we're talking more about court cases. We'll see how that shakes out. We were talking before this, Supreme Court is in the news a lot, and we're seeing a lot of these issues or related ones move their way to the Supreme Court. So whether you're talking about school bus Wi-Fi, you're talking about school bus zero emission target sales, there's a lot of legal wrangling going on right now.
Yeah, some other Thomas Built Buses news. I know we got a press release that they are combining with FCCC, which is Freightliner Custom Chassis Corp. So they're rolling that all up under one umbrella. Makes sense too, as their president, TJ, he is the president at FCCC and the president at Thomas. So now it is one entity, I guess, under the Daimler Truck Specialty Vehicles. So kind of under the umbrella. I had reached out, and it's business as usual. I think that's just by name change alone. Really nothing changes for any customers out there. So that I think won't really affect anything. But it's kind of interesting that they're just combining the different product portfolios.
Absolutely. And I reached out to people with Daimler Truck last week and had not heard back as the time we were recording this. But essentially, we know that the Freightliner, that's the chassis that Thomas Built Buses the bodies are built on. So yeah, it's not changing a lot. And there is some kind of veiled language in there about a lot more synergies and customer experience. And so we have stuff going on with the tariffs right now, more legal wrangling. And, I'm, trying to get some more clarity on exactly what some of these elements are. Is it going to be even more shared production? But definitely seeing a lot of moves out there by the OEMs, very cognizant of costs right now. That's another big thing in the news cycle and our economy. Certainly, we know, and I've talked to a lot of school districts that maybe this current school year, there were some budget, maybe some budget cuts or some budget issues. Certainly not. A lot of school districts are not in a very strong place this current school year. We've seen, some speakers and some attendees at conferences normally would be coming to us or others, and they're saying, "Oh, we can't even travel." But I'm hearing from a lot of school districts that next school year is really where the Armageddon is coming and where they're viewing that. So I think the OEMs and all of the suppliers right now are trying to still navigate this tariff situation and just navigate inflation and rising costs across the board to try to streamline things to make it a little bit easier on their customers.
Yeah, appreciate that, Ryan. Also want to remind the audience, I hosted a webinar last week with First Student and their group at First Services. Great conversation, very lively. Definitely want to invite you to go over there and rewatch that if you haven't seen it. If you go to stnonline.com and you click on webinars, that is a place to get it under our multimedia section. So go check that out. If you click under news, you'll see that under multimedia webinar. There's a little drop down for that. So I invite you to go check that out. It is available for 24/7 viewing. So we thank First Student for bringing us that webinar. And we got a whole bunch of other webinars on tap for you too. So go sign up for our other webinars that are on deck. But definitely take advantage of all these great conversations and bits and pieces of information to help you optimize your fleet, improve your special needs population training, driver training. There's just a lot there for you guys to take advantage of. A lot of resources from different partners offering various scopes of opportunity here for you guys to jump in on. So highly recommend that to go take a look. All right, we have a great interview with Taylor Ekbatani and Jeremy Stowe right after this. Hey guys, have you heard the news? The school bus safety company has unveiled a new leadership training course to elevate safety leadership. This innovative course is a compelling opportunity for school transportation professionals to enhance safety standards and now is open for enrollment, inviting leaders to transform their operations. It's tailored for location managers, supervisors, trainers, dispatchers, anyone in a supervisory or leadership role. The course offers a robust curriculum featuring 7 comprehensive programs and a 40-question final exam. The program includes introduction to safety leadership. What is safety? Safety management systems. Why do people have accidents? Understanding human behavior, leadership principles, safety leadership's practices. Guys, I've gone through this course and it is outstanding. I highly recommend you check it out. Give the school bus safety company a call at 866-275-7272 or visit their website at schoolbussafetyco.com. That's schoolbussafetyco.com.
Hello, nation. Taylor Ekbatani here. I am with an awesome guest. We have Jeremy Stowe, the Director of Transportation for Buncombe County Schools in North Carolina. I hope I said that right because I was getting lessons before we started recording.
Yes, you said it right, Taylor, and I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, so throwing it back at you. How about that?
That's fair. Honestly, it's what I get because I mispronounce things all the time. So, it was just fate for me to marry, into someone with a complicated last name. So it's fine.
There you go. And I'm so glad that you chose a county that has a complicated first name. So it all works out good that way.
Exactly. And I'm happy that I got it right. But can you say it again just so we can clarify?
So with a little Southern dialect and draw in it, we'll be Buncombe County Schools in Asheville, North Carolina, Western North Carolina. Represent.
And we were actually in your neck of the woods not too long ago for STN Expo East.
Yeah, you were just right down the road, a couple 150 miles away in Charlotte. So I attended STN East, and it was a great conference. Always good product.
Yeah. Yeah. First time in North Carolina. It was my first time in North Carolina. It was great. Great experience.
Glad. Hey, come back anytime.
Well, we'll be back next March, the 26th through 31st. So I'm assuming I'll see you again then, Jeremy.
I hope to. Like I said, it's always a great time. Lots to learn there.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into all the greatness that you are in your district, let's kind of touch base on your background a little bit. How'd you get started in transportation? What led you down this path?
Wow. So understand that God's got a sense of humor and a plan. And in this life, we'll never understand the plan or the sense of humor. So specific to Buncombe County Schools, I started as a high school math teacher here in Buncombe County in 1999. Taught high school for about 4 years, went to the dark side of education where I became a school administrator and was an administrator and assistant principal and principal in Buncombe County Schools for roughly 20 years.
Wow.
Got moved all over the county in different roles. My joke is always, I can't keep a job. So I got moved around and let's see, that would have been in the spring of 22. My superintendent gave me a call, said, come in, let's talk about stuff. I said, yeah, which is typically where you're getting moved to another school is what happens in those conversations. And he said, yeah, I've got something you're not going to see coming. I said, what's that? He said, I need your help in transportation as we try to modernize and push things forward a little bit in our county. And he's right. I didn't see that coming, but here I sit. I'm in my 4th year as director of transportation for our school system. And I'll tell you what, if transportation's in your blood, you don't know until you know. And if you do know, you enjoy it. So that's who I am.
So coming from the administrator side into transportation, does that kind of give you a greater, because a lot of times there's disconnect, right, between administration and transportation. So how do you kind of foster that connection now?
Well, so I say often to all my fellow principals, just because you've seen a bus, just because you have driven a bus, doesn't mean you know how to manage buses. I will tell you that having this opportunity to look through the looking glass where I've been on the side at the school level and understand the frustrations that come with reliable or unreliable transportation opportunities to our students, and then segueing to this side of it where we're providing that infrastructure and that support so that students can find their way to school. I can tell you that my years as a school principal and a school person give me a unique perspective to this management side of being the director of our transportation.
Yeah, I would think it would come with some unique perspectives.
There are not a lot of folks that get to say that they've done both sides of this job, and often when I tell people what my history has been, I get that little sideways look of, "Are you serious?" Because you got to know, I tried to get out of my first bus license when I was a new teacher. True story. I was sitting, I got my first job at Owen High School as a math teacher, and Dr. Linda Sprague was the assistant principal. And she says, "Mr. Stowe, have you ever thought about getting your school bus driving license?" All right, I'm 21 years old, and I'm pretty quick at the wit. So I thought for a second. I said, "Oh, Dr. Sprague, if you have a whole lot of speeding tickets, will they allow you to have a bus license?" She says, "No, you cannot have a license." I said, "I was just asking." Mind you, I've never had a speeding ticket, knock on wood. But it got me out of that piece. I made that transition a few years later to assistant principal. And the way a lot of our transportation is structured here in Buncombe County, it really helped me to acquire that school bus driver's license and be able to provide this resource for my students. So I then went over and got my driver's license, but I can say, full honesty, I did everything I could to keep from having a school bus license the first time I had the opportunity.
Well, you said in the beginning that God has a plan, and his plan was for you to be in transportation. You just didn't know it yet.
Yo, and I can't wait to hear a joke one day, man, because to see how I've struggled in some of these parts of the plan, but I'm in the right place doing the right thing for my family and the kids that are around me.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing your story a little bit, Jeremy. So as you transition into transportation, you've been featured in the magazine this month. Yeah. So we're recording this in August. I'm not sure when you guys are listening to it, but we're recording here in late August. And you guys, Buncombe,
that's us,
are STN Garage Stars. So something that we did differently this year, it's our 10th anniversary. But we wanted to focus not only on individuals, but on teams, right? Because I think individual recognition is important, but sometimes in a team, it's the whole team coming together that makes the wheels go round. And I think you guys really exemplified that, being one of our 3 team recognitions this year.
Yeah, 100%. I can tell you wholeheartedly, I'm just the guy that fills out the form and says what we did right. But everything that's happened here in this department and that's happened out in our recent Hurricane Helene response was attributed to the dedication and the hard work and determination of the guys that are around me. So I did a little bit. I answered the phone, answered emails, and put people to work. But my guys are the ones that, where the rubber hit the road, did the hard work and the heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm. Let's expand upon that a little bit, Hurricane Helene and that recovery efforts, because I know you also talked about that at STN Expo East, and that's kind of been something that you've, it's a tragedy you guys overcame.
I don't think I really understand the magnitude of what that event meant for our area. You can always remember where you've seen large events that happen, and you watch them on the news. You say that big thing happened somewhere else. It doesn't happen here, and it's really surreal to sit on this side of the conversation, knocking on the door of the 1-year anniversary, where it was a significant and tragic event, and that our team really played an integral part of the local response from day one. It's hard for me to put everything together. Would you want me to just tell the story of what's going on and how we responded?
Yeah, I think especially for our listeners who maybe are unfamiliar with your story.
Yeah, so it was really wild. So it started September 26th. And September 26th, we had seen a lot of rain that kind of came into our area, heavy rain. And we had canceled school on the 26th because we just had reasons to, right? We saw that streams were swelling. We had no idea what was ahead of us. Like truth be known, but we canceled school, standard protocol, and I was contacted that night by our emergency management personnel, Kevin Tipton, our head fire marshal for Buncombe County. He said, "Hey, we're anticipating we're going to need some evacuation buses. Can you help?" I said, "Sure." So the night of the 26th, we sat here at my office, me and about 8 other drivers, and we were dispatched to evacuate a couple mobile home parks that have problems with flooding typically anyway. Right? They are in low-lying areas, drainage issues, all that kind of jazz. So we stayed here at about 1 a.m, and then we went home. So when we went home, went to bed, right? I got in bed, 4:30, Kevin calls me again, and I've been friends with Kevin for about 10 years. And he says, "Oh, man." He said, I need everything you got." I said, what are you talking about, Kevin? Right? Because I knew that there was a storm, and you could hear it while you're in the bed. He said, "The flooding is going to be massive." He said, "We're talking about the 500-year floodplain, not the 100-year floodplain. And we're going to have water in places we never knew we could have water." He said, "I need 8 buses to start with, another 4 behind of it in the Black Mountain, Swannanoa area, because these towns are going to get devastated." So away we went. We still had pretty good cell phone service at that time. And I got a hold of some drivers, some of them mechanics. We staged in the area, ran buses to rescue shelters. And I can tell you, I'll never forget that I rode out Hurricane Helene in the front of a 2001 Freightliner Thomas-built bus, baby, bus 111, because I knew that bus has given me a lot of trouble. And if I could put any bus to get drowned out and not have to have it again, I was going to do it. I went and got that bus on purpose, like swear. So we ran the evacuation buses, and then about noon, 1 o'clock, it stopped, and everything was quiet, and it was beautiful outside. And we came back to the office. The infrastructure was really starting to fail. Communication was falling at that time. And Angie Ledford, one of our head people with emergency management, calls and got some kind of last cell phone call out to me that said, "Oh my goodness, we need fuel everywhere." And we do have a mutual aid response for disasters. There have been plenty of times where my fuel trucks have provided fuel support to fire trucks for brush fires, other large response items like that. That's typically where it'd be for large fire disasters. So I knew what to do. We knew how to do it. But I get back to the office, and our road was just covered in trees. I could barely get my little Ford Explorer that I drive up the road, let alone a 1,600-gallon tanker out. So I got guys to the office. I said, hey, we need to support. We sat there. I don't know, again, by hook or crook, we got some signals out to emergency management. Again, the cell phone network here was failing at that time. The power grid was failing. The cell phone network was failing. And if you ever want to see a picture of how bad this is, you got to Google Hurricane Helene pictures from outer space. There's this wonderful picture that shows the eastern seaboard. And it's a nighttime picture of where Hurricane Helene's path went. And I see you Googling, so you got to look up that picture. And you'll see this black wedge that goes up right through it, where it knocked out every bit of infrastructure all the way through it. Did you find the picture when you hit the Google?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the picture. So in that dark spot that's at the top, that's where we're at. Notice how it gets larger as you went up, and it was a very black spot. So with that, there's no power, there's no infrastructure. So we sat here till 5, 6 o'clock that evening, and we're not getting anywhere. And I tell my guys, I said, let's go home. And at this point, I don't have cell phone coverage or phone coverage for about a week after this. It comes on spotted as some of the Starlinks, as different Starlink items were coming into the area. But so I go home, right? And I mentioned here about God's plan and his wisdom. My son comes home from college. He was at a local university, Western Carolina University, and my wife and I had gone to the pantry because we knew it was a big deal, right? And like you ration everything out. We're like, okay, we're going to make this for Monday night. This is Tuesday night, right? We're doing this. And all of a sudden, I never forget, my son opens the door. He's like, what's up? Me and my girlfriend, we're home. And we're like, what? So we went from feeding 4 people to 6. But anyway, I say that because the cool part of that is my son also had finished his school bus driver's license, right? Dad's school bus guy. He just wanted it. He drives a bus at his university as his college job, the CAT Tran, it's called, at Western Carolina University. But I'm going somewhere, the reason that was cool for him. So the next morning, the morning of the 28th, I totally wake up. We are sitting good as a family, right? I got a couple trees in the yard that are down. We got zero power. Nothing around us has power, right? That picture I showed you shows nobody has power anywhere. And I'm sitting there. I remember drinking coffee. I remember on the back porch drinking coffee, a little high energy kind of guy, talking with the wife. I said, if they needed that fuel yesterday, I wonder if they need it today. Holy cow, they need it. Oh, boom. Right. So everything starts going, because that morning I had planned, as I was making that coffee on the French press, man, on the gas stove, as I'm making that coffee, I had made the decision to take care of all the family chores that I never get a chance. I got to cut a tree up that's in the yard, right? We had fared very well as a family. But then this spirit hit me and said, man, if they need that fuel yesterday, what do they need today? I grabbed my son, my family. We jumped in my car. Boom, we come to my office. We get to my office. It's like driving through a war field, right? Like there are trees down everywhere. We get here. I show him how to run a fuel truck. I've got 3 on staff. We keep them fueled. I take him to a local fire department. This kid's 19 years old at this time, and he's got the commercial driver's license. But I said, man, we're throwing fuel. And away we go. And the only way we could communicate as a family were sticky notes on my office door. And I said, anytime you change location, anytime you go to different places, come back to my office. Here's the sticky pad. Tell me where you're at. Now, I go to Swannanoa. I'm throwing fuel in everything that moves, right? Track hose, bulldozers, whatever the case is. It was time to do some cowboy stuff. And I say that often because everybody wants to do cowboy stuff till it's time to do cowboy stuff. And you got to decide how big of a cowboy you're going to be. So I'm throwing it everywhere, right? Because I knew we needed this response. I lose track of my son for many, many hours. You talk about a dad that's worried, right? I sent him with 1,600 gallons of flammable product that he barely knows how to dispense to a war zone. And I'm the boss. I don't have to do this, but it's on my heart, man. It's got to be done. And I can't call my guys. They would have jumped in here in a second. But I can't call them. right? There's no cell phone service. So we go around, and I eventually find my son at 5 o'clock with like 100 gallons left. I'd put out 2 fuel trucks because I knew where to go to bulk fill the different fire departments. He'd put out 1,600 gallons, man, trucks, National Guard. He was in one situation. He said, Dad, I had to back that truck 2.5 miles off Echo Lake because the roads were devastated. And I mean, just really literally pressing the gas in that kind of response. But very thankful to have that opportunity to support our area immediately. We moved to the 29th. Now we're in Sunday, the 29th. That was Saturday, the day after. Sunday, the 29th. As a family, we had started bringing my father, my parents, my grandfather, we had all kind of triaged, and you saw families and communities moving to central locations so that you could stockpile resources, because if you really want to have a feel of despair, is to know that the supply lines are cut off and you have no way to talk. In this world of communication, of instant communication, no communication is wild to have. I just got to tell you, a very surreal experience. I came back to the office, and they had gotten a message to me that day that they needed me and our director of maintenance at emergency management response. I go in, and the emergency manager, Ryan Cole, he just gives me a hug. He's like, man, I need everything you got for as long as you got. I said, we got it. So they gave me like this super secret green radio. It was really cool. And they're like, live with it, stay with it, answer it all the time, carry it with you. And I would sit there, and I started getting my team back together, right? So I've got pictures of they would put me in patrol cars, and because we couldn't get a hold of people, I'm going to different mechanics' homes in highway patrol cars to knock on their door. They thought they were getting arrested. They're just as cut off of communication too, of, hey guys, I mean, if you can come in, if your homes are okay, come on in so that we can start providing these resources on the backside. We totally, I keep about 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel on hand. I keep about 20,000 gallons of unleaded on hand. And we'd started setting up off-site distribution at the 3 off-site tanks that I have. I've got pictures really kind of crazy where we'd fashioned like portable pumps to our service trucks. They're running off the batteries in holes. So we're filling ambulances, ATVs, because also specific to Buncombe County, our county garage had been devastated. So the local government's infrastructure had been shaken up significantly. We kept providing these resources and bringing generators online. Our next job, specific to local support, was to provide fuel support to everything, right? And we're filling ambulances. I had a regular little 24/7 truck stop here, and that was the way it went for a while. And personally, for me and a lot of my staff, it was easier. I went home and got my camper and brought it here. I just slept in the parking lot. It was easier to have my camper here and not have to have the commute home. And I only live 20 minutes away, but I didn't know if they were going to need a lot of stuff at 11 o'clock at night, at 4 in the morning. So we're ready to go, and we worked the total entire time. I'm transitioning now to so that's the initial piece of the story, where we start with what I call the response phase. And from the response phase, we really moved into the recovery phase. But in between the response phase and the recovery phase, I got a crazy call. Let's see, that would have been I got to think of the day, 29th, 30th to October 1st. All right. Really kind of a cool call on my little secret radio that I carry around. Hello, it's Tom. Mr. Stowe, we need your help. And on my little secret radio that it's not secret, it's what all the firemen and all that kind of jazz. I remember I had to stay on a channel called BTAC 1. I get this call that said, Mr. Stowe, we need you at EOC Command. So I go to EOC Command. This wasn't a big deal. We're about 5 days into the response right now. And I said, well, yeah, totally. What do you guys need? They said, yeah. So they pulled me into this room with these engineers. And I totally feel like, you remember watching the movie Apollo 13? I feel like I was totally in Apollo 13, where they got like this. They said, all right, we got this square thing. We need it in a round hole. They said, on the top of each one of these mountains, I don't know if you've studied the geography or the topography of Buncombe County, but basically we sit in a bowl of mountains where we're a little bit. Asheville is in the bottom of the bowl, and we have surrounding mountains. Well, where do you put cell phone towers? Right? If you want cell phone and communication towers, you put them on top of mountains. Well, guess what happens when a hurricane comes through? Those roads are blocked. All the power's knocked out. And those engineers are sitting there talking to him, and they said, yeah, we need you to understand that our communication towers all have 5 days of diesel fuel in them. I said, okay, that's cool. Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I said, you've called me because you're running out of gas, right? They said, totally. So my team pivoted quickly to taking our service trucks that we all know what a school bus service truck looks like. We're fashioning makeshift 55-gallon drums in the bed of them because we can't get the tankers up there. We're in four-wheel drive, and they're clearing roads, and we're cutting locks off stuff. They didn't even want to give me the keys. I said, how do I get the keys to all these generators and all these radio towers? They said, you're mechanics, cut the locks. So I've got pictures, and I teamed up with one of my longtime principal buddies. We're going to the top of these radio towers, bolt cutters, man. We're cutting the locks off of them.
That had to have been fun.
And I said, oh, it was great. Again, time to do that cowboy stuff. You know what I'm saying? But we're cutting locks off left and right, just pouring fuel into anything that moves, keeping right, because information was becoming key. You had a community that had been devastated. They're having some cell phones that are coming back online, but there's no power that can get to these towers. They're having to run off this diesel fuel. These generators are coming online at these different shelters, et cetera. And we knew quickly that our department was a lifeline artery to this recovery effort that had started, right? We started with response, moved to recovery. And we continue to support that. The response we saw from a local energy company was wild. These camps of people would show up and just continue to build upon these little camp cities. And we would always get phone calls, right? Because where are the biggest places you have as far as parking lots? School bus yards, right? Those are usually the biggest things. So these like smoke signals would come to me. I swear it was about that way on this little magic radio. And they would say, hey, you need to move every bus you have at school 1, 2, or 3. So we would all load up, move those buses, and these camps of power response would come and start helping to rebuild the infrastructure. As far as a response from, we focused on the fuel, supporting the generators at the different shelters, the light towers. We just, if it moved and it needed energy, we poured fuel in it, and that was our goal for the first 2 to 3 weeks. We also dispatched buses to provide the shelters had a variety of people with a variety of needs, and what we saw quickly were that in a lot of our shelters, the folks that were there were of marginal means often, where they didn't have a support structure, where maybe they had a cousin, brother, whatever the case is, where they go live with. So they're in a lot of these shelters, and with those marginal means, sometimes they had health risks, concerns. So we also started building routes so that we could service these shelters with these school buses to get folks to dialysis appointments, to medical appointments, whatever critical need they have. So at this point, I've got 2 teams rolling. I've got one team that's got the fuel and logistics support going. I got another team that's managing routes and getting people these critical needs. And behind that critical need route piece of it, we also see these gifts and these donations, this food that comes in. So how do you distribute the food? Let's put it on a school bus. Sounds like a great idea. So now I've got a team that's rolling to move stuff around the area to get these vital resources to the folks that need it. You know, without really kind of segueing to the end, we stayed in this recovery phase for another week or so, and then we had to move to reopening. And in the reopening phase, right, what do we all know as school bus people? We have to build routes. Well, it's hard enough to build routes when you know the roads are there, but what if the roads and the bridges are gone? So now we've had to move to, as we build these routes, to ride around and physically look, right? If it crossed a brook, a stream, a river, we had to verify that that bridge was there. And again, if you look at the topography of Buncombe County and where Asheville is, you got these mountains that surround, and we're basically sitting at the bottom of this bowl of mountains. And you typically move from mountain to mountain with a bridge. And we had a lot of bridge infrastructure that was knocked out, and we had to verify those and continue to build those routes as best we could. We did a good job. We got people to school, but it definitely wasn't from a lack of hard work. That's for sure. That's the 2-second version of my story of Helene. What'd you think?
I am so appreciative that you shared that, Jeremy. I think there's a lot of nuggets there, and I've been writing down like things that I wanted to bring up to you. So I'm just going to kind of go through this little list here. But being a year out now, right? About a year out. What does the reopening process look like now, right? Is infrastructure back? We're going into back to school. We're still kind of dealing with the routes because this happened last year,
End of September.
A month into school?
Yeah, roughly a month in. So the good thing about reopening this year, we know how those routes are, and to be quite honest, if a road is not back right now, it's not going to be back anytime soon. So we had already previously routed without it in mind, and we will continue the routes that we'd set up at the end of last school year. We'll continue in those this year. And I really got to give a shout out to our North Carolina Department of Transportation. I mean, I don't know where these people came from and how they got these resources, but we saw the infrastructure come back quickly. And I have no data to reference this, but I really feel as though we're at about 90 to 95% of infrastructure back with roads where we were pre-Helene. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been wild. We're seeing some shoulders deteriorate, some of the quick fixes. Previous to this call today, I went into our Fairview community and looked at Emma's Grove Road, and there was a temporary bridge that's really moving to a more permanent fix right now. So we're having route around that, but truthfully, again, we're sitting at about 90%, 95% where we were pre-Helene, and we know how to get around these things right now. And we'll just keep doing the business we did before we ended last school year.
Okay. And then I know when I was writing up the Garage Stars too, I think in the nomination, it was, 2 of your own people had lost their homes, but had still come and helped with this recovery effort.
Yeah. Wow. That's a real emotional subject because, right, guys that work in transportation and mechanics, people don't understand the dedication that folks have in these jobs to just do the right job, regardless of what they're paid, how they're recognized, etc. So 2 of our guys, one of our fuel truck guys, Jeff Hoagland and Bill Atkins, both lost their homes. And we knew Jeff had lost his because I called and told him to leave. He didn't want to leave. And as I was being dispatched to the Swanoa community to drive a school bus that day, and I drove it because I wanted to be in the middle of it. One of our mechanics, Tim, calls. He says, "You got to tell Jeff to leave. He has to leave now." I said, "Why?" He said, the water reservoir is going to go right through where he lives. So I called him at 4 a.m. I said, "You got to go." He said, "I'm not going." I said, "You got to go now." And because this is a family podcast, I won't share the specific words of what I shared with him that he needed to leave. But he left. Him, his son, his dog left. And I mean, guys, you talk about emotion. You've never seen a group of guys get emotional till he shows up that Tuesday. We hadn't heard of him. We hadn't heard out of him since then. And he just shows up Tuesday. And I'd sent guys, as I was getting my team back together, I said, go to his sister's house, go find Jeff, find out where he's at. And we'll always aggravate each other, rib each other, get mad at each other. But you want to see guys that were very excited to see somebody show back up. I mean, he just showed back up, right? Same thing with Bill. We knew where Bill was. He was off he had a lot of ties with our mechanics, so we knew he was safe. But these guys are working Tuesday. And I remember asking Bill, I said, "Why are you here?" He said, "I got nothing to do at the house. There's nothing to do there. And I can do more good here helping everybody." And he's just about back in his home now, the different repairs. But he chose to be here because he knew he had a skill base. He knew he had a talent. He had a community that needed that help. And he didn't want to hoard those resources because there wasn't anything he could do immediately for his home. The water was receding. He felt like he wanted to be here to help. And I'll never forget that in my life. And I said all that without being emotional, because the first 15, 20 times I said that, it kind of tore me up, folks. It was powerful stuff.
Well, I think it really highlights how transportation is such a family, and like whether that's your individual school district or the nation, as a whole. I really think that highlights the important work that you guys do every single day that goes widely unrecognized. And that's why, we do the Garage Stars feature, because these are the people behind the scenes, making sure these buses are rolling and dealing with all the other stuff that comes their way.
I had a mentor years ago tell me, said there's 2 keys to success. First key is showing up, right? And you just got to show up. And there's plenty to do after you show up, but the key to success starts with showing up. And the second piece is finishing your commitment. I saw a team of guys that knew both those key elements without being taught by me or mentioned by me, that they needed to show up and finish their commitment. And their commitment was to their community. The commitment was to the students of our community, and how can they give this skill set that they had to further the betterment of their community. I mean, my guys, while they're out, throwing fuel from, at some point we had 5 or 6 fuel trucks going. We're also taking repair calls as these generators weren't working. I mean, we had our guys, if it was a community generator and we got wind of it, we went out and we worked on it. And we did everything we could to keep these things rolling and coming online so that folks could get back to living normal.
Well, I also think that's a testament to leadership, right? Like, people aren't going to show up for crappy leaders, for crappy people, for people who aren't doing the work themselves. So the fact that you don't have to tell these guys to show up, because they're going to show up for you. They're going to show up for their community because they feel that culture, that passion, that family.
Well, and then don't disregard too that I did show up at a few of their houses in a patrol car, knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, where are you at? You got to get back to work." But yes, thank you for the compliment there. But they do. They believe in what we do, and we're willing to help.
Yeah, I just think that like the cultural aspect needed to be touched on, just because that some people wouldn't show up, right? And so I think that says a testament to you as a leader.
Well, hey, I appreciate that, and it's easy to do when you appreciate. And heck, we're a bunch of softies. If you appreciate and you love the guys that you're around, man, these guys are awesome, and that's why it was on my heart to nominate them for Garage Stars. And I appreciate them being recognized, because they are Garage Stars. They showed up when everybody else didn't.
Mm-hmm. And, as we're recording this too, Hurricane Helene is hitting or about to hit the coast.
I'm looking at the map right now.
So
it's coming on the coast.
But you guys aren't on the coast. So my question is, did you have emergency preparedness for hurricanes? Was that something that was talked about? Like, hey, a hurricane might come this way?
So back at STN East, Derek Graham moderated a panel with Laura Hill, the director of transportation from Hillsborough County, about hurricane responses and our different stories. And it's very similar. I asked her, I said, do you have a snow preparedness protocol? She says, no. She said, there's no reason to it. I said, trust me, there's no reason for me to have a hurricane preparedness. I'm in the mountains 300 miles away from the coast. It's not something we have emergency weather protocols that we follow, and we had implemented a little bit of that the day before, because we did see that the conditions were unsafe to operate school buses, high winds, weather protocols are weather protocols. But as far as a written protocol for hurricane response after you get devastated, we didn't have it. And it's very similar to why the school district of Hillsborough, Florida won't have a snow emergency response. It just doesn't happen until it does.
Right.
All right, guys, catch your breath for here for a second. The interview is going great, and I want you to listen to these great messages.
The Ride family of vehicles include the award-winning Achiever, Creator, and Dreamer battery electric school buses. The Creator is powered by STN's 2025 Best Green Technology Award winner, the Blade battery. With safety as a central focus, Ride school buses provide immediate benefits to our communities and our children. Visit ride.co to discover the future of student transportation, or email info.na@ride.co for further product detail.
Y'all know I like to talk. Have you figured this out? We're having
this is great. I texted Claudia. I was like, we're going to keep rolling.
Y'all need to get me back. I'm loving this. This is fun.
This is what I'm saying. This is what we need.
Y'all listen, and if you want to develop some more contact, I love talking. So I like open invitation. We can flat do this, right? The Jeremy and Taylor show, anytime you want.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Everybody gotta have boots on the ground.
We need a sponsor. Who wants to sponsor us?
Oh, hey! I do have a topic though. As we're coming online, I do want to move to part of our response and just how it helped. Right. So we talked a little bit about reopening, and that's where I kind of want to go from. Is after we determined what our routes needed to be and how our routes need to be structured. How in the crud do you get this information to the families? Right. What do you do? What do you do? Right. So we've had real good luck with Edgelog and with their parent app and with their Tim's routing. And I just got to give those guys a good shout out here, because that communication platform was stable. Parents knew we were able to push out notifications through the Edgelog app. We were able to tell parents, because I had to really push a message to our families that our bus routes would be very fluid as we came back online. And what would happen is we would route everything in a general community. Now, from routing in that general community, we routed, we'll just say Monday was the first day of school. We're ready to get everybody back. Well, we would see roads that would come online quicker than we could route. Right? They would come online, and we had to have a structure and an app where the parents were able to see the location of the bus, where a new bus stop was going to be proposed and adjusted to, and have a platform where they could trust that the information that they were getting was correct. So obviously with the Edgelog parent app, with it having the GPS information that's real time, and our routing, we were able to funnel that through that app to have that communication quickly with our families. And like, shout out to Edgelog. It was a stable, it was a user-friendly environment, and the families really enjoyed it. And they'd been on the app previous to this event, but last year was our first school like hard push first year with the rollout. And we really had to push our information out to those pieces, because it was changing quickly. And if we changed it here in the computer, it was able to push that out to those families. So shout out to that.
I think, too, something that you said that was really interesting was like, you are doing all of this, right, with little to no communication. You're in the middle of this. You're putting sticky notes on a door to communicate with your son, right?
All day long.
And now you're talking about the benefits of being able to communicate. And I think that highlights it so importantly, for districts that don't have these parent apps or don't have this, way to communicate with parents. It's almost like a missed opportunity.
It is. So I use all kinds of stupid sayings in my career, but I'd rather be lucky than good anytime, right? And I got to tell you right now that I was lucky that I made the decisions to embrace these parent apps and run these things out previous to this event happening, because having that infrastructure right there just made it so fluid to work with the families, and having a stable app. And I'm sorry that I've chosen Edgelog, and I'm a little brand specific here, but they did what I needed them to do. They answered the phone. They provided a stable platform, and it was user friendly for our families to work with. I mean, it was the best I could ask for. But as we brought folks back online with that parent app, the parents are used to instant communication now. And I go back to the beginning of my story where, we talk about all the devastations. And folks, we had people here that lost lives, lost loved ones, lost communities. And I'm sitting here complaining about losing communication. But in losing that communication, right, first world problems, not having that communication right then really added a lot of questions, puzzles, angst, anxiety to myself and my family. And to be able to have once we're rolling buses, we're on the backside, we're in the recovery, we're in the reopening phase, to have a stable communication environment for these families was critical to a smooth opening.
I want to touch on your partners, right? You leaned on Edgelog. Who else kind of helped you through this? I know that you guys partner with Everdriven Alternative Transportation. What did that kind of look like as you're coming back online?
Yo, all right. So that was just a wild call. And again, this little thing that said, "Hey, didn't you see these guys that had some odd new ways of doing transportation at one of these conferences?" I swear it was that random. So right. So what do we know after a large catastrophe like this? Right, kids actually lost homes. Okay, and to quote, I'm looking here at some of the data that I have. So typically, our McKinney-Vento population, let's get a picture of Greater Buncombe County Schools. Okay, so Buncombe County Schools, we have roughly around 22,000 students, and of the 22,000 students, we transport 10,000 students. Okay, we do 10,000 students on 205 buses. 15,000 miles a day, right? Every bus director should be able to tell you their general stats, right? That's where we live in this world. Well, of that number, that 10,000, we usually have about 250 homeless students, and of that 250, we need 100 students, right? That are carried. That's standard pre-Helene transportation world. Okay. All right, let's move forward. We're working on this. Remember, we talked about response. I compartmentalized all this from response to recovery to reopening, right? So as we're looking at reopening, again, in that reopening piece, I'm working with my student services folks and Jamie Johnson, one of our associate superintendents. She says, we have roughly about 1,500 students that are homeless. I mean, you could see my head melt down, right? Not really understanding the magnitude of that. So all of a sudden, we had, of those 1,500, we had an additional 200 students that needed transportation to get back and forth to school, right? It's not fair that their community's washed out, that typically a lot of, in Western North Carolina, you have a lot of family-based living. So, and I can say this as part of my story. I'm telling you, my brother, my mom and dad, they don't live far from me at all. We see a lot of that. But what happened in a lot of our communities where one piece of that infrastructure got washed out, all the infrastructure got washed out. And typically our McKinney-Vento transportation piece, a lot of our families, general rule here, right? No data to back this. But if I'm homeless from one of the districts, one of the tennis districts, typically I find residents in one of the close by adjacent districts, right? So it's really not a big deal to start there and dip over to get the student and get them back to their home school. Well, this time, after this event, we scattered all over our county, and I could use none of the resources that typically got me through it to get these students to school in a timely, efficient manner, right? So now I got this puzzle. So I swear I called Garrett Bernal, right? I remember Garrett brought some donuts by here and just kind of made some face recognition. I called Garrett. I said, "Hey, didn't you tell me that you guys do something like Uber Junior?" I swear it was this raw right here, right?
Garrett at Everdriven.
Garrett at Everdriven, right? I swear I'm talking to him. I'm like, "Aren't you guys like Uber Junior?" That's what I kept calling it, right? Because they book it and they come show up. And he said, "Yeah, something like that." Man, I leveraged that team. We started communications. I created, with partnership from my district leadership, a little bit of a response group to where we really put some social workers around these students that are homeless. And in just a matter of time, with the tools that Everdriven has, they showed up, right? And I talked about that earlier. Success is about showing up, finish your commitment, and shout out to Everdriven. They showed up and finished their commitment. They went from zero presence here within 2 weeks, safely transporting a little over 100 students. I don't remember the straight numbers, but 100, 115.
Wow.
And they worked hard. They got drivers on board. They got them through a lengthy vetted safety process, right, to ensure the safety and the compliance of these private vehicles. They vetted these drivers, and they had, again, that smooth communication through their parent app of these children that they were carrying, of when they'll be there, when they'll be on time. If the parents had to cancel a route, they could cancel a route. But again, it was smooth and it was efficient and it was dependable. So, shout out to Everdriven for stepping up and answering that phone call of, "Don't y'all do something like Uber Junior?"
I don't think they like being compared to Uber.
I got it. All right. So we won't call them Uber. How about Rideshare Junior? How about that? How about Rideshare Junior?
There we go. Well, so you partnered with them, you said, so at the start of last year after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, so I've been looking at this as an option. Now, mind you, nothing's free and nothing's cheap, right? But we know that these needs of our students in all of our school districts are becoming a little bit more vast than what we can support with traditional school bus transportation. So we need an effective tool to help students get to school. And as I had these students literally cast all over my attendance district, all over the county, this was an effective and efficient tool. It has a cost to it, though, right? Everybody needs you got to do a cost analysis. Nothing's free. But to effectively get these students in these critical needs quickly and reliably and efficiently to their home schools.
Let's talk about the controversy with alternative transportation.
No, bring it.
So, a lot of people don't think that alternative transportation is the way to go, right? It's school bus only. Yellow is the safest form of transportation. And I'm not going to argue that. Yellow school buses are the safest form of transportation.
100%.
But in your district, and after Hurricane Helene and the recovery efforts there, leaning on partners that do alternative transportation has greatly helped transport these students and has helped keep them safe, right? It's not applicable to always send a yellow school bus.
So let's talk about the masses and let's talk about the individual pieces, right? So first, I got to settle my side of the argument, right? Of the 10,000 students that I have that I transport each day, for 9,800 of them, yes, the school bus is 100% the safest, most reliable prescription to get these kids from home to school and school to home, right? Argument's done. Shoot, swish, done with it.
Mic drop.
That's right. Boom. I can do that if you can see it. It's a podcast though. But moving from that, we've seen, and I'm going to lean on my principal time, over the last 27 years of my career, I've seen the eccentricities of what the families need and the variables that families are cast into by the circumstances of their life. I need an effective tool in order to help mitigate some of those circumstances. And we have laws that have evolved, right? We always talk about the McKinney-Vento law. I can tell you that, and I'm going to sound terrible, the first year I was an assistant principal in 2003, if you came to me and you were homeless and you wanted to come to my school, I'd probably looked at you and be like, tough. You there's nothing for you, buddy, right? There's nothing for you. But we have since seen legislation and research that says that it's right for these students in these severe mitigating circumstances to attend the schools of which they have knowledge of. So, moving across that continuum of my 27 years, if I'm able to say, tough, you shouldn't have been homeless to begin with, who would choose to do that? Then I don't need these alternative tools. But since we know that we have to provide this access today for these students that have these mitigating circumstances, I need a series of effective tools like alternate transportation options. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I've got a new program, and I still haven't figured out how to do it. And I'm probably going to tap Everdriven at the end of this conversation when I'm doing a cost analysis. But we're looking at a deaf education program, right, in our area, right? And what do we know? These people, our students who are hard of hearing and deaf, live everywhere in our county. And we have one place to kind of funnel those resources of deaf education. So I've got to find a way to get 28 and 30 miles in a small amount of time by 8 o'clock in the morning and a 2:30 pickup in the afternoon. Folks, you're not doing that on a school bus.
I think I look at it too as like one more tool in your toolbox, right? You have routing software. That's a tool.
All right. So y'all, all right, you brought up the tool. I got to mention it. All right. Is this going where you need it to go?
Yeah, no, this is perfect. Keep going.
All right, so I got a guy back here, right? His name's Ron. Ron is our tire guy, right? And Ron drives a tire truck. And with the tire truck, on his truck, he has tires and tools to replace wheels as needed. So as we'll say next Monday, one of my buses, they got a flat tire. They call, right? They call here and say, hey, I'm on bus 555. I have a flat tire. Who do I call? I call Ron, the tire guy. I send Ron out. He's got impact wrenches. He's got pneumatic jacks. He's got their place. Ron arrives with the right tool, right? But I really feel as though a lot of times we get caught in these old paradigms of thought in education where we've got this flat tire, i.e. I've got kids scattered all over my county that need this one program, and I'm trying to send Ron out with an adjustable wrench, a balloon blow up, and some Scotch tape, right? And he's never going to fix that tire. But if I send Ron out with the right skills and the right tools, that tire and that problem is corrected, and the bus is back on the road. Same thing for where I was talking about that deaf education program, right? It's right for me to get these kids to that program, right? It's required. But I don't need to try to do it with the school bus. I got to focus the right tool, and a modernized transportation outfit like Everdriven is the right tool for that flat tire.
Yeah. I think, every district is different, and what they rely on and what they need is totally different. It's all different terrains. It's all different, geographies.
It is. I can tell you just firsthand, like I remember working with our friends at Edgelog, and we'd look at a couple of our routes and stuff like that as we're looking at routing softwares, et cetera. And they would always look and say, are there any straight roads in your area? No, there are no straight roads. There are no ways to get from point A to point B without going over a hill, holler, or branch or something like that. And, we have to adapt quickly to the variables and circumstances that we have in front of us, or be victims that are left behind. And I refuse to not modernize our outfit as the circumstances change around us to be left behind. And hence some of the pieces I pushed out in the last couple of years out of my department. And I'm behind the 8 ball. Folks, there are people that are a lot further along this paradigm shift than I am. That's for sure. I just had a hurricane blow through.
I like how you can say that with a smile now. I just had a hurricane.
I just had a hurricane devastate us. It was terrible. It's going to sound, it did devastate our area, but like in my life's story, I'm thankful I had the job that I had to do the work that I had at the time that I did. And I'll lean on this and stand on this for the rest of my life. And, very, very thankful to have, the guys around me that I had, and the skill set and the willingness to, and the know-how. So I started at the beginning of this talking about God's plan, and his plan was to have me here and have me in this role at this time so that I could try to promote the good as I could for everybody in my community, my school system. So shout out to the guys that are all behind them, because they're rock stars.
Well, and shout out to you as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know we could talk for hours and hours, but you got a job to do. So
Stay tuned. Next week, Taylor and Jeremy will talk about.
Insert topic here.
Insert topic here.
Well, again, thank you so much for jumping on. I had a great time talking with you, and
I did all the talking.
I look forward to seeing you hopefully in STN Expo East next March.
Yeah, you will. That's right. Represent STN.
A special thanks to Taylor, Ryan, Jeremy for all his knowledge. Enjoyed that interview. It was long, but man, it was worth it. Thanks for sticking in there, guys, and being with us all the way to the end. We also want to thank our sponsors, TransFinder, Ride, and the School Bus Safety Company. Guys, visit stnonline.com for all the latest news and analysis on the school transportation industry, and lock in that TSD conference. Early bird savings October 3rd is days away. Go on there, tsdconference.com, register today, get your team registered for the ultimate in special needs training. Don't forget, guys, subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. We got you every week, Nation, for another episode. It's weekly. We're here for you with our fingers on the pulse of the school transportation industry. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.